when I started boxing, when I was amateur boxer, I applied a Philippine team to fight in Olympics.
They didn't want you.
Want me because they said, your style is not for boxing, you know.
You won't believe what a boy born into a family so poor they could not afford to put rice on the table has done with his life. Manny Pacquiao grew up sleeping on the floor of a tiny shack in the southern Philippines, going days without a proper meal, selling bread on streets just to help his mother survive. Today, at 47 years old, he stands as the only boxer in recorded history to win world championships across 8 weight divisions, a Hall of Famer still lacing up his gloves, still chasing greatness, still representing an entire nation on the world's biggest stage. This is the full story of what happened to Manny Pacquiao, and it will move you in ways you did not expect. The boy from Kibawe who changed everything. There is something deeply uncomfortable about imagining a 6-year-old child caught in the crossfire of government soldiers and armed rebels somewhere in the mountains of the southern Philippines. That was Manny Pacquiao's earliest reality. Born on December 17, 1978, in Kibawe, Bukidnon, on the island of Mindanao, Pacquiao entered the world with nothing. His father, Rosalio, sold coconuts. His mother, Dionisia, sold peanuts. Together, they still could not keep hunger from the door. The family often survived on bananas and root crops, when even rice was beyond reach. Pacquiao was the 4th of 6 children, raised in a single-room shack that housed the entire family, with no clear path forward and no reason to believe anything extraordinary was coming. His parents separated when Pacquiao was still in elementary school, leaving Dionysia to raise the children alone. That development stripped away whatever thin safety net existed. Pacquiao has spoken candidly about the hunger he experienced during those years, the kind that does not pass quickly and leaves a mark on a child long after the meal finally comes. He sold bread in the streets of South Cotabato province as a young boy, working odd jobs just to contribute something. By the time he was 12 years old, he had already dropped out of school entirely. Survival had become the full-time occupation. It was around that same age that boxing entered the picture. His uncle, Sardo Mejia, introduced him to the sport through training in a makeshift home gym. 6 months later, Pacquiao was boxing in a park in General Santos City, competing against local fighters and discovering something that no amount of poverty could take away: an extraordinary left hand, natural speed, and a heart that simply refused to stop. Watching Mike Tyson lose to James Buster Douglas on television in 1990 became the moment he would later describe as life-changing, the spark that transformed a street kid's hobby into a burning ambition. By age 15, Pacquiao had already established himself as the best junior boxer in the entire southern Philippines. That achievement meant something significant for a boy from a single-room shack. But it was not enough for him. He made a decision that took more courage than most grown adults ever summon in a lifetime. He stowed away on a boat to Manila, arriving in the capital with no money, no connections, and nowhere to sleep. He trained at a local gym and worked as a construction laborer in Manila during those early years, doing whatever was necessary to keep himself fed and fighting. He slept inside the gym when no shelter was available. His professional debut came on January 22, 1995, against Alvin Carnacion, when Pacquiao was just 16 years old. He stood at 4 feet 11 inches and weighed 98 pounds, technically underweight even for the light flyweight division. Reportedly, he carried hidden weights in his pockets to pass the official weigh-in. He won the fight anyway. Those early years in Manila told a story of someone defying every reasonable expectation. He slept in the boxing gym when no other shelter was available. He fought in small halls for money that barely covered food. Yet something about the way Pacquiao moved in those early bouts hinted at something larger. Trainers who watched him described a quality that coaching alone cannot produce: the ability to make the opponent feel the power of a left hand they never saw coming. That gift, combined with the kind of hunger that comes from actually going without food as a child, created a fighter unlike anything Filipino boxing had produced before. The early losses came. A defeat in 1999 to Medgoen Singh Surat briefly disrupted his upward climb, but Pacquiao's response to adversity was always the same. He adjusted, trained harder, and moved forward with renewed intensity. Setbacks that might have ended another fighter's story only sharpened the focus of someone who had already survived conditions far more difficult than a boxing loss. When he arrived at trainer Freddie Roach's Wild Card Boxing Club in Los Angeles in 2001, that foundation was already in place. What came next would rewrite the record books entirely. But the records he broke and the legends he defeated along the way paint a picture of a career so extraordinary that even the sport itself struggled to contain it. Stay glued till the very end. Building a legend across 8 divisions. The partnership between Manny Pacquiao and Freddie Roach stands as one of the most celebrated trainer-fighter combinations in boxing history, frequently mentioned alongside Angelo Dundee and Muhammad Ali, or Cus D'Amato and Mike Tyson. When Pacquiao first walked into the Wild Card Boxing Club, Roach recognized something immediately: raw, explosive speed, a natural left hand, and reflexes that no training program could manufacture. What Roach provided was structure, tactical refinement, and the addition of a devastating right hook that made Pacquiao's offense genuinely unpredictable. Under Roach's guidance, Pacquiao went on to win world titles across 8 different weight divisions, a feat that no boxer before or since has matched. The campaign began in earnest with a WBC flyweight title captured in 1998, when a 19-year-old Pacquiao stopped champion Chachai Sasakul in the 8th round in Thailand, fighting on the road against a defending champion with home advantage. That willingness to go anywhere and fight anyone defined Pacquiao's approach across the next 2 decades. He never sought safe opponents or protected records. He sought the best fighters in each division and went after them at full force. Moving through weight classes that most fighters never dare to cross, Pacquiao captured titles at super bantamweight, featherweight, super featherweight, lightweight, and light welterweight before arriving at welterweight, where his most iconic battles unfolded. The names he defeated along the way read like a Hall of Fame shortlist. Oscar De La Hoya, a multi-division legend, was stopped in 8 rounds when Pacquiao moved up to challenge him in 2008. Ricky Hatton, unbeaten and fearsome, was knocked out in 2 rounds in 2009. Miguel Cotto, one of the most respected welterweights of his generation, was stopped in 12. The trilogy with Juan Manuel Marquez delivered 3 of the most competitive and discussed fights of the modern era, with Pacquiao winning the first 2 before suffering a devastating knockout in the 4th meeting in 2012. That knockout loss to Marquez represented the only time Pacquiao was genuinely stopped, and the manner of it, face first to the canvas from a perfectly timed right counter, shocked the boxing world. Yet, Pacquiao returned from that loss the same way he had always responded to adversity, by continuing. He defeated Timothy Bradley twice in subsequent years, and then produced one of boxing's greatest upsets in 2019, defeating Keith Thurman by split decision to claim the WBA welterweight title at the age of 40, becoming the oldest welterweight world champion in boxing history at that time. The fight against Floyd Mayweather in May 2015 deserves its own chapter in any telling of Pacquiao's story. Billed as the fight of the century, the bout generated over $400 million in pay-per-view revenue and set financial benchmarks that the sport has not approached since. Pacquiao entered the ring as one of boxing's 2 biggest stars and was competing against an opponent widely regarded as the best defensive boxer of his generation. The result was a unanimous decision loss for Pacquiao. But the fight itself cemented something important. No stage was ever too large, no opponent too intimidating, no situation too daunting for the boy from Kibawe to handle with dignity and full effort. The combination of those victories, that consistency across weight classes, and the cultural significance of representing the Philippines on the world's biggest stages produced something that went far beyond athletic achievement. On fight nights in the Philippines, entire cities came to a standstill. Crime rates reportedly dropped. Traffic disappeared from streets as a nation of over 100 million people gathered around screens to watch a man from Mindanao carry their hopes into Las Vegas or Tokyo or wherever the next opponent waited. The feeling Pacquiao generated in his home country was not simply national pride. It was something closer to shared identity. The belief that someone born with nothing could still reach the highest possible place through effort, faith, and refusal to stop. That identity, however, would soon take him somewhere entirely unexpected, somewhere the gloves could not follow. And the road he chose next revealed just as much about the man beneath the legend. Stay glued till the very end. Beyond the ring. The transition from boxing champion to Philippine senator was not, in Pacquiao's own telling, as dramatic a shift as it might appear from the outside. He had already begun his political career years before retirement, first winning a congressional seat representing Sarangani province in 2010 and returning in subsequent terms before setting his sights on the Senate. In 2016, running among dozens of candidates for 12 available Senate seats, Pacquiao finished 7th with more than 16 million votes, stepping into the upper chamber of the Philippine legislature while still actively boxing. Holding both roles simultaneously reflected something essential about how Pacquiao understood his own purpose. He was not boxing simply to accumulate wealth or titles. He was boxing because the sport had lifted him from poverty, and he felt an obligation to use whatever platform that journey provided to help others. His congressional work included authoring legislation promoting sports programs across the Philippines, and he spoke frequently about targeting poverty and corruption as the central concerns of his public life. By 2021, after a unanimous decision loss to Yordenis Ugas in August of that year in Las Vegas, Pacquiao made his retirement from professional boxing official in a 14-minute video posted to his social media. The announcement carried unmistakable emotion. He thanked boxing directly, addressing the sport as though speaking to a person, for changing his life, for giving his family hope when there was none, for providing a path out of circumstances that offered very little. He then announced his intention to run for president of the Philippines in the May 2022 elections, accepting the nomination of his PDP-Laban party faction and vowing to fight corruption and poverty from the country's highest office. The presidential campaign was ultimately unsuccessful. Pacquiao finished in a distant position in the 2022 results, with Ferdinand Marcos Jr. winning the presidency by a substantial margin. His Senate term concluded in June 2022, leaving him outside government for the first time in over a decade. The defeat was public and significant. A man accustomed to winning on the largest stages had entered an arena where his gifts did not translate in the same way. He handled the outcome with the same composure that had carried him through boxing losses. He acknowledged it, reflected on it, and did not disappear. His faith had been central to everything. Pacquiao identified as a born-again evangelical Christian in a country that is overwhelmingly Catholic, and he made no effort to minimize that identity during his political career. He authored legislation declaring the last Monday of January as National Bible Day in the Philippines. He spoke publicly about the role of faith in every major decision he made. For his supporters, that faith was a core part of what made him compelling. For his critics, his public religious positions occasionally created controversy. Through all of it, Pacquiao's stated position remained consistent. God had taken him from a floor in Kibawe to the floors of the Philippine Senate, and that fact shaped everything he believed about what was possible and what was owed in return. The question of what came next after the failed presidential bid lingered for a period. Pacquiao remained visible, still training, still present in boxing conversations, still generating attention whenever he appeared at events or made comments about potential opponents. Then, gradually, the conversations shifted from speculation to something more concrete. The retirement, it became clear, had not been the final chapter. Something was pulling him back, and the pull turned out to be stronger than anything he had felt since those first days training in a makeshift gym in General Santos City. What happened when Pacquiao finally stepped through those ropes again at 46 years old is the part of this story that nobody saw coming. And at 47, the journey is still not finished. Stay glued till the very end. The comeback. At 47, still fighting, still inspiring. When Manny Pacquiao officially confirmed on May 21, 2025, that he was coming out of retirement to face WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, the boxing world responded with a mixture of excitement and genuine uncertainty. Pacquiao was 46 years old, returning after a nearly 4-year absence from professional competition, stepping in against a 30-year-old champion with serious professional credentials. The stated intention was to become the oldest welterweight world champion in history, breaking the record he himself had set in 2019. He had not been entirely dormant during those years away. In July 2024, Pacquiao participated in a charity exhibition against Japanese kickboxer Rukia Anpo at Super Rizin 3, donating his entire purse, with 100% of the proceeds going to charitable causes. The fact that he gave away his earnings rather than pocket them said something about why he had returned. This was not about money. The Barrios fight became one of 2025's most discussed boxing events. In the opening rounds, the MGM Grand crowd erupted at every punch Pacquiao landed, the legend building an early lead through his familiar combinations, cutting angles, placing his left hand with the precision that had defined the previous 3 decades. In the middle rounds, glimpses of the old Pac-Man surfaced unmistakably. He moved, countered, displayed ring intelligence that only decades of competition produce. In the final stretch, however, Barrios turned up his aggression, pressing forward and hurting Pacquiao in rounds 10 through 12. When the scorecards were announced, the result was a majority draw. 2 judges scored it 114-114. One scored it 115-113 for Barrios. The champion retained his WBC belt. Yet Pacquiao had done something arguably more striking than winning. He had competed at the highest professional level at 46 years old against a prime champion 16 years younger, and the result was genuinely contested. The Associated Press scored it 115-113 for Pacquiao. Multiple former champions publicly declared the fight a robbery. The kind of debate that followed is the kind only Pacquiao could still generate. Just weeks before that fight, in June 2025, Pacquiao was formally inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame as part of the class of 2025. Entering in his first year of eligibility on the first ballot, he became only the 4th Filipino boxer inducted into the hall, delivering a speech at Turning Stone Casino in Canastota, New York, honoring every trainer, cornerman, and opponent who shaped the journey. Freddie Roach described the shared honor as making him prouder than anything from their years training together. The induction happened weeks before the Barrios fight, meaning Pacquiao stood in the Hall of Fame ring while actively preparing for a world title challenge. No comparable moment exists in modern boxing. At 47, the story continues. In February 2026, Pacquiao announced a 10-round exhibition against former WBO super lightweight world champion Ruslan Provodnikov, titled Manny Pacquiao vs. Ruslan Provodnikov, The Road to Glory, scheduled for April 18th at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas. Provodnikov, known as the Siberian Rocky, had previously served as a sparring partner for Pacquiao, adding a familiar edge to the matchup. Further into 2026, discussions around a potential Floyd Mayweather rematch remain active, and Ryan Garcia, now holding the WBC welterweight title, has been floated as a possible future opponent as well. As of 2026, Manny Pacquiao's estimated net worth stands at approximately $220 million, built through boxing purses, endorsement partnerships with companies including Anta and Clito Reyes, and business ventures across the Philippines. That figure becomes almost impossible to process alongside the starting point. A child in Kibawe who could not afford rice, selling bread in a street market with no reason to believe any of this was coming. At 47 years old, Manny Pacquiao is a Hall of Famer, a former senator, a devoted philanthropist, and still an active professional boxer whose appearances in Las Vegas consistently generate genuine world title conversations. The question his story leaves behind is not about legacy. That was settled long ago. The question is simpler and far more human. What is it in this man that simply will not stop? The answer might be that the boy from Kibawe, the one who stowed away on a boat with nothing but a dream, never fully left. He is still in there, still fighting. If you found this video touching, do us a quick favor and hit the like button. Every like you give supports our work and encourages us to keep making videos just like this one. If you're new here and you want more stories like this, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to have you in our community. And before you leave, check out this next video because we think you're going to love it just as much as